Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the rule of Mao Zedong, a leader who absolutely reshaped China through a powerful mix of revolution, mass mobilization, and, well, absolute power. This quote, it wasn't just a clever saying for him. It was everything. This one idea was the absolute bedrock of his entire rule over China. Honestly, if you want to understand the decades of chaos and change he unleashed, you have to look at it through this lens. So let's really dig into that. How did this idea about power and guns actually play out in the real world? We're going to see how it kicked off these huge mass movements, how it was used to crush anyone who disagreed, and how it completely upended Chinese society. And we'll start with one of the most ambitious and disastrous experiments in modern history. All right, so first up, the Great Leap Forward. This was Mao's first big test of his whole philosophy. It was this absolutely radical economic plan. And I mean, just listen to the name, right? The Great Leap Forward. It sounds epic, like they were promising this gigantic, almost superhuman jump into the future. And the goal? Oh, it was nothing short of an industrial miracle. See, Mao genuinely believed that you could just skip the slow parts of economic development. He thought that if you just had enough revolutionary passion, enough pure people power from hundreds of millions of citizens, you could literally launch China past its rivals in the West. And this is where the dream just collides with reality. It's brutal. On one side, you have this grand vision, overtake the West, create a communist paradise. But the actual outcome? Total disaster. Take the idea of making steel in backyard furnaces. It sounds interesting, right? But it pulled farmers away from their crops, and the steel they made, it was basically useless, brittle junk. That, plus forcing everyone onto collective farms, well, it was a recipe for absolute catastrophe. And the human cost, I mean, it's just staggering. It's hard to even wrap your head around. We're talking about an estimated 15 to 55 million people. The numbers are debated, but no matter how you look at it, tens of millions died from starvation. It became known as the Great Famine, and it was just a tragedy on an almost unimaginable scale. Okay, so here's the really crucial part. You'd think a failure this big, this catastrophic, would make him rethink things, right? Nope. What it actually did was weaken his power inside the Communist Party. He started to feel threatened. And that feeling, that threat to his authority, is exactly what set the stage for his next move, one that would be even more destructive. Which brings us to the Cultural Revolution. To get his power back, Mao didn't just start a political campaign. He declared war on culture itself. He literally turned the entire country into an ideological battlefield. Now, to pull this off, he did something pretty clever and pretty terrifying. He didn't use the army, and he didn't use the party officials. He didn't trust them anymore. Instead, he turned to the youth. He unleashed the young people of China, giving them the power to enforce his vision. And their weapon? A new kind of warfare, pure ideological terror. And the tactics they used were just brutal. You had these public struggle sessions where teachers, intellectuals, anyone considered an enemy were publicly shamed and humiliated. They set out to destroy the four olds, old customs, old culture, which meant smashing priceless historical artifacts and burning ancient texts. And these youth militias, the Red Guards, they were given free rein to commit horrific violence. Millions were sent off to labor camps for what they called re-education. So when you step back and look at these two massive events, the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, you start to see a pattern. This wasn't just random chaos. Oh no, it was a method, a calculated, repeatable formula for getting what he wanted using force and the power of the masses. And you can break that formula down into 4 basic steps, and it's scary how consistent it was. First, set some huge, grand ideological goal. For the Great Leap Forward, it was an industrial paradise. For the Cultural Revolution, ideological purity. Step 2, launch a massive nationwide campaign to get everybody fired up. 3, use violence and terror to crush anyone who gets in the way. And 4, the result? He ends up with all the power, absolute control. Okay, so after all of this, after decades of nonstop revolution and just unimaginable suffering, what are we left with? What is the lasting legacy of Mao's rule? What kind of shadow does he still cast over China today? And this is really the core conflict of his legacy. It's a huge paradox. On the one hand, many credit him with ending what's called China's century of humiliation. He unified the country and, you could argue, laid the foundation for it to become the global power it is today. But, and it's a massive but, all of that came at a cost that is just staggering. Millions upon millions of lives, and the almost complete annihilation of thousands of years of traditional Chinese culture. And that really leaves us with this incredibly difficult question to chew on. It's not just a question for China either. It's for any of us when we look back at complicated figures from history. How do you balance the books? How do you weigh national progress against such a profound, staggering human cost? There are absolutely no easy answers here, and that's why Mao's legacy is still one of the most fiercely debated and, frankly, honking stories of the 20th century.